All right, so ready to like really dive deep into some strategies for feeling more confident speaking English.
Yeah.
We're going way beyond, those usual tips and tricks today,
Yeah.
for
Well,
sure. You've shared some really fascinating sources with me
hmm
that kind of delves into like the psychology behind language learning.
yeah.
I'm really excited to kind of unpack all this with you.
I think it's going to be a great deep dive for sure.
Yeah, I think so too.
Um, what I think is so fascinating about this whole topic is that confidence in speaking English,
Hmm.
it isn't just about grammar and vocabulary.
Right.
Like, it's this really deep connection to your mindset and
Oh,
your
yeah.
self-perception, and even just like how we interact with other people.
I noticed that too when I was reading through the sources.
Yeah.
One of the sources introduces this idea of a challenge ladder.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
I have, yeah.
It suggests like creating a ladder with easy, medium, and hard levels
Yeah.
for specific speaking situations that make you nervous.
Mm.
So it's like baby steps, right?
Yeah. Exactly. It's that idea of like slowly kind of pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone.
Right.
Think about learning any skill, right?
Right.
Like, you're not going to try to do the hardest thing right away.
Right.
You're going to kind of slowly build up to that.
Hmm.
And so this approach is really good for giving you those small wins that then kind of help you build that confidence over time.
I can definitely see how that would be a lot more encouraging
Yeah.
than just constantly feeling like you're not quite there yet.
Mm-hmm.
The source also dives into this idea of faking it till you make it.
Yeah.
And I'll admit, I was a little skeptical.
Okay.
Does acting confident really like lead to actual confidence?
I think it can be surprisingly effective.
Okay.
So like when you project confidence,
Mm.
even if you don't like feel it internally,
Yeah.
people respond to you differently.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that positive feedback like reinforces your own belief in yourself.
Oh, wow.
And so it creates this like positive feedback loop. So it's like we can trick our brains into being more confident.
Yeah,
That's pretty wild.
it is. Yeah. Yeah.
The source even gives some like specific examples of how to do this, like
Mhm.
focusing on speaking volume and speed.
Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
you think about that?
So like when we lack confidence, we tend to speak really softly or rush through our words.
Right.
But if you can like consciously control your volume,
Mm-hmm.
slow down your pace a little bit, and use complete sentences,
Okay.
you just project this much more confident image both to yourself and to the other people.
It's almost like improving your posture.
Yeah.
Like when you stand up straight, you just feel more confident.
Yes.
It's like sending a signal, not just to the people around you, but like to yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I really struggle with, though,
Yeah.
is that urge to apologize for my English,
Oh, yeah.
especially when I make mistakes.
I think that's so common.
Yeah.
But one of the sources makes this really thought-provoking point
Okay.
that like apologizing for your English.
It actually reinforces those negative feelings
Right.
and can make you seem less credible.
Interesting.
You know, think about it. Like, if someone is constantly apologizing for their skills,
Yeah.
do you take them as seriously?
That's a good point.
Mm.
I guess it shifts the focus to like the perceived flaw
Exactly.
rather than to the message
Yeah.
that they're trying to convey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So instead of dwelling on those, like, perceived shortcomings,
Mm-hmm.
just focus on communicating your ideas effectively.
Right.
One of the sources actually uses this really funny anecdote
Okay.
about, like, not speaking certain languages
Okay.
to highlight how unnecessary it is to apologize for something that we're still learning.
It does seem kind of absurd when you put it that way.
It does, yeah.
Like apologizing for not being a master chef
Exact.
when you're still just learning to cook.
Yeah.
But even if I ditch the apologies,
Mm.
like that feeling of anxiety is still there.
Yeah.
Like that inner critic that's constantly pointing out every little mistake. Do you have any advice for that?
Yeah, one of the sources had this great technique for combating that.
Yeah.
And that's to write down your fears
Okay.
before like a challenging speaking situation
Okay.
and then compare them to what actually happened afterward.
Oh, wow.
It's like a fear versus reality check.
So it's like putting that inner critic on trial
Yeah,
and seeing if its accusations actually hold up.
exactly.
Yeah. Like
So you're documenting your anxieties
Mhm.
and then comparing them to the actual experience.
Yeah.
And you often find that those fears were way worse than reality.
Right.
And this helps you to kind of like fact check those negative thoughts and build resilience.
This is already so insightful. We've
Yeah.
covered, the challenge ladder and faking it till you make it,
Mm-hmm.
ditching those apologies and fact checking our fears.
Yeah.
But I am curious to kind of learn more about how to like navigate specific situations.
Yeah, let's do it.
So
Let's dive into how we can apply these principles
go.
to presentations, conversations, and other common scenarios that can trigger those speaking anxieties.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, so we've been like focusing on building this foundation of confidence,
Yeah.
But now I think it would be good to kind of like talk about how to approach specific speaking situations.
Yeah, sounds good.
One of the sources kind of highlights this shift, from striving for like perfect English to simply communicating effectively.
Yeah, I think that's a big mental hurdle for a lot of us. You know? We
Yeah.
get so caught up in wanting to like sound correct
Yeah.
that we kind of hold back from actually, just expressing ourselves.
Yeah, it's a really common trap.
Mhm.
But think about it. Like, do you ever stop listening to someone
right.
just because they make a small grammatical error?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Especially if they're saying something interesting.
Right, exactly. Like, you're more focused on understanding, like, the message than, like, analyzing their grammar.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, so the source kind of reminds us that communication is a two-way street, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of, like, obsessing over our own performance,
Right.
we should be focusing on, like, connecting with the other person.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us to, like, this often overlooked power of active listening.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about active listening,
Yeah.
like in general, but how does that connect to confidence in like speaking English specifically?
Yeah. So when you are genuinely engaged in a conversation, like focusing on what the other person is saying,
Yeah.
you're less likely to get caught up in your own anxieties. You're just present in the moment, right?
Okay.
Reacting and responding authentically.
That makes sense. Because if you're busy overthinking
Yeah.
your next sentence, you're not really listening to what the other person is saying.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Because you build rapport with the speaker,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're also like subconsciously picking up on these nuances of the language,
Oh, wow.
the pronunciation, and even just like cultural context.
So it's like learning by osmosis just by being in real conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that.
And remember that challenge ladder we were talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Like active listening can be a great way to tackle those lower rungs.
Okay.
Because even if you're not speaking a lot, you're still like engaging with the language
Right.
and building that confidence.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So speaking of challenges, like let's talk about like how to sound more confident,
Okay.
even if you aren't fluent yet.
Okay.
One of the sources I think really emphasizes the importance of speaking at a clear and controlled pace.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
Well, I know I tend to like speed up when I'm nervous.
Yeah,
Like I'm just trying to like get it over with.
totally. And that's really common.
Yeah.
But by slowing down, you just project this much more confident and like composed image.
Okay.
And it also gives you time to think.
Right.
And it allows the listener to process what you're saying.
Slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. The source also recommends like recording yourself speaking English.
Oh.
I know it can be kind of daunting,
Yeah, a little bit.
but it can be such a valuable tool for identifying areas for improvement.
That sounds really scary.
Yeah.
But I can also see how that would be like a really good way to become more aware of like those unconscious habits we might
Yeah.
have that we don't even realize.
Exactly. And it's not about criticizing yourself.
Right.
It's about just becoming more conscious of your speech patterns and making these like deliberate choices about how you want to sound.
Okay, yeah.
Another aspect of this is using appropriate volume.
Oh, yeah. Volume's a big one.
Yeah.
I've definitely been in situations where I'm like struggling to hear someone speak
Yeah.
because they're mumbling or they're just too quiet.
Yeah.
And it does make you wonder, like, are they unsure of themselves?
Yeah. And speaking too softly can project that lack of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, speaking too loudly can be overwhelming.
Right.
So the key is to just kind of adjust your volume based on the context
Got it.
of the situation that you're in.
That makes sense.
And then there's also the element of tone.
Yeah, tone.
Yeah.
Tone is really important in any language, right?
Yeah.
Like a monotone voice can just make even the most fascinating topic sound boring.
Absolutely. So think about how you use your voice in your native language
Right.
to convey like different emotions
Mm-hmm.
and try to apply those same principles when you're speaking English.
Okay.
Just let your personality shine through.
Yeah.
One more point that one of the sources raises is the importance of like using full sentences.
Oh, that's interesting.
What are your thoughts on that?
I know when I'm nervous, I tend to like default to just short phrases
Mm-hmm.
or even like single words.
Yeah.
It's like I'm trying to like minimize the amount of English that I have to use.
Yeah, and it's a natural reaction.
Yeah.
but it can kind of inadvertently undermine your confidence.
Oh, really?
Because by using those full sentences, you're demonstrating this greater command of the language and a willingness to express yourself more fully.
So it's not just about sounding more confident.
Yeah.
It's about like actually thinking more confidently as well.
Exactly. Like it pushes you to articulate your thoughts more clearly and completely.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a really subtle shift.
Yeah.
But it can have a significant impact on how you perceive yourself and how other people perceive you.
I'm really liking this so far.
Good.
Feels like we're like really starting to lay down like a clear path to becoming more confident English speakers.
I think we're making great progress.
Yeah.
How about we tackle like some of those more high pressure scenarios?
Okay.
Like presentations and job interviews.
Yeah.
Those can feel especially daunting.
Yes.
When English isn't your first language.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's tackle like those high stakes situations,
Okay.
presentations, job interviews, just any scenario where the pressure's on. My heart always races a little bit.
Yeah.
When I have to speak English in front of an audience,
Yeah.
do you have any advice for like how to handle those nerves?
It's completely natural to feel nervous in those situations, even for native English speakers,
Really?
Yeah, one of the sources was emphasizing how even seasoned speakers get presentation jitters.
Oh, wow.
But the key is to kind of channel that nervous energy into positive momentum.
That's easier said than done.
It is, yeah.
But how would we do that?
Preparation is key. And not just like memorizing the content, but like actually practicing the delivery.
Okay.
And getting comfortable with the flow of your speech.
Yeah, because one of the sources made a good point about how it's not just what you say, but how you say it.
Exactly.
I know I tune out if someone's like mumbling or rushing through their presentation.
Yeah.
Even if the topic is interesting.
Right.
But what about when you go blank or you start rambling? Those moments can really throw you off.
For sure. So that's where visuals can be a game changer.
Okay.
Slides, images, even props.
Props.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about using props.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
It can help to illustrate your points.
Okay.
And just keep the audience focused.
That could be really creative.
Yeah.
And it could take some of the pressure off of me as the speaker.
For sure. And if you are feeling nervous, having that visual to focus on can be a really grounding technique.
Yeah. Okay.
The sources also highlight the power of using short, concise sentences.
Okay.
Especially when you're under pressure.
So instead of getting lost in those long, rambling sentences, it's better to just keep things clear and to the point.
Yeah, like almost like bullet points.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's another surprising tip from one of the sources. Don't be afraid to like incorporate pauses into your speech.
Pauses? Really? I always feel like pauses are a sign of weakness.
Right.
Like I've forgotten what to say.
It can feel that way, but pauses can actually be incredibly powerful.
Really?
Yeah. They give you that moment to just collect your thoughts. Take a breath.
Okay.
Allow the audience to absorb what you've just said. It's like adding those dramatic pauses in a movie.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So pauses can actually make the presentation like more engaging?
For sure. They create a sense of rhythm and flow.
Okay.
And they help to emphasize those important points.
Interesting.
It's a very subtle technique, but it can make a big difference.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah.
So what about like those more casual conversations,
Yeah.
with colleagues or clients? Any tips for how to navigate those interactions more smoothly?
One of the sources really emphasized the importance of active listening and asking questions. It shows genuine interest.
Yeah.
And keeps that conversation flowing.
So it's not just about talking.
Yeah.
It's about like really engaging with the other person.
Think about it. How do you feel when someone is just talking at you?
Yeah, not good. It doesn't feel like they value what I have to say.
Exactly. So active listening, even in those casual conversations, shows respect. And it helps to build rapport and can help you to feel more comfortable and confident in the interaction.
I'm realizing how much I focus on what I'm going to say next instead of actually listening.
Right. It's a common habit, but it's one that we can break with practice.
Okay.
The source also suggested having a few go-to phrases ready for those awkward silences.
Like what?
Like, that's a great question. Or, let me think about that for a moment.
Okay.
It just buys you some time, and it helps you avoid those filler words.
The filler words.
Yeah, they definitely make you sound less confident.
Okay.
So it's like having this mental toolbox, full of phrases that you can just pull out when needed.
I like that.
Yeah.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on confidence in speaking English.
It's been a pleasure exploring these insights with you.
Yeah, likewise.
Remember, confidence is a journey, not a destination. It's about embracing those challenges, celebrating those small wins, and constantly pushing yourself to grow.
So to our listener, what's one small step you can take today to feel more confident in your spoken English?
Yeah.
Maybe try out that challenge ladder, or record yourself speaking, or practice that presentation one more time.
Yeah, good idea.
Every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to fluency and confidence.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep those conversations flowing.
And keep exploring that fascinating world of language.